2 weeks later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Lexi watched from her treehouse as her father crossed the lawn to talk to Bill the gardener. She had to find out what was going on. On a normal weekend, Duncan would make time for Lexi, riding his bike up and down the long driveway with Lexi on the back. She loved feeling so grown up, with the wind in her face making her gasp, and the power of the buzzing bike. She would sit smugly as Bella watched from the garden, too small yet to ride such a big bike. It was Lexi and Daddy's special thing. The rest of the weekend, he would usually whistle and tinker in the garage, Bella by his side, banging nails into pieces of wood to make something for Teddy, or washing her pedal bike. However, for 2 weekends now, Duncan hadn't been in his bike shed. They hadn't heard the sound of the whistles and mumbles as he listened to the football on the radio, or the clank and tinkle of tools falling to the floor. Instead, he sat in his office at home and talked on the phone. So Mummy crying and Daddy working on the weekend. His parents were more distracted than Lexi thought. Something was going on, and Lexi wanted to know what that was. She lay down on her tummy on the rough floorboards of the treehouse and arranged her sweets and magazines in front of her. Chewing quietly, she tried to listen to Bill and Dad's conversation. "You've done a great job, Bill. We can't apologise enough," her father said as he handed Bill an envelope and shook his hand. Bill took off his cap and scratched his shiny bald head, which was sweaty after a morning digging weeds. "Don't worry about me, Mr. McGivern," Bill replied, taking the envelope. "Now you mind and tell Bella to water her flowers round the back every day in summer. She knows where all her tools are. She should be harvesting some lovely peas soon." Just then Lexi noticed her mother striding over to join them. She popped another sweet in her mouth, savouring the sour taste. "Bye, Mrs. M," Bill said, picking up his lunch bag. "And if anything changes, let me know." "Bye, Bill. Thanks for everything," her mother smiled, and her parents watched the older man as he mounted his bicycle and cycled away. Lexi looked at her father. Her mother patted him on the shoulder, but he just stood there with his hands in his pockets. Wasn't Bill coming back? The sweet in her mouth suddenly felt very sticky as her mouth dried up. Lexi frowned. If what changes? What were they talking about? Grown-ups had some stupid conversations sometimes. Only yesterday, Brenda and Mum shared a hug as Brenda was about to leave. They didn't usually do that. Brenda just left with a wave. What on earth was going on? Lexi shrugged. This was boring. Parents were stupid. She wanted proper entertainment now. "Mummy," Lexi called down into the big garden. "Yes, Lexi," her mother replied quietly. Duncan still stood with his back to them, his shoulders slumped, staring down the driveway. "Can we go skiing at the dry slope? Last week you said we could." "I said we might, Lexi." She looked at her husband and swallowed hard. "As it is, we can't afford it." "What? Oh, well, swimming then," Lexi carried on, not really listening to her mother's reply. Can't afford wasn't something that Lexi took much notice of. "No, Lexi." "Oh, well, golfing. I dunno. You haven't taken us anywhere all weekend or last weekend." "You were riding yesterday, Lexi." "Yeah, but that was with Georgie's mum." Lexi jumped down the steps nailed to the sturdy tree trunk and hopped onto the grass. "Daddy," Lexi continued, her green eyes now sparkling with fake tears, "could you take me to the shops?" "Not Bella, though. She'd spoil it," she added quickly. "Lexi, that's enough!" Her father turned and roared at her, his eyes wide and unblinking. Lexi stopped, shocked. "Your mother said no, so it's no." Lexi's bottom lip began to tremble as real tears now fell down her reddening cheeks. "I hate it here!" she screeched and ran into the house. Inside, she threw herself onto the bed. Daddy never said no. Daddy never shouted. He always said she was his precious girl. Why were they both being so mean? "Lexi?" Bella said softly from the doorway of Lexi's bedroom. She could see her big sister lying on her bed. Bella was used to Lexi screaming in frustration, but this was different. "Go away!" Lexi sobbed into her pillow, but she didn't stop Bella when she sat on the bed. Bella patted Lexi on the back and tucked Teddy by her face. "Teddy will make it better," she said kindly. "I want Bubba," Lexi said in a muffled voice. Bella looked round the bedroom until she saw Bubba, the stuffed toy dog, and handed him to her. Lexi grabbed him out of her hands. Bella carried on patting until their father peeked his head around the door. "Girls," he said gently, "we need to talk to you both." Duncan and Kate both entered the room and sat down at the small table. Duncan hauled Lexi up from the bed and sat her on his lap. Although she resisted his hugs, he still wasn't forgiven. Bella climbed onto Kate's knee. Then Duncan began with a deep breath. "I'm sorry I shouted," he said, and Lexi looked up at him with teary eyes. He continued, "You girls know I work at the bank. Well, the bank is in trouble and they don't need me to work for them anymore." He stopped and looked at them both. Bella clapped her hands. "So you can play at home all day, Daddy?" Lexi folded her arms and turned on her sister. "No, stupid. It means we don't have any more money. Does it mean we don't get Christmas presents?" Lexi looked up at him with big eyes and wiped her nose with her sleeve. "Now, Lexi, don't call your sister stupid. But yes, you will still get Christmas presents." "Good." Lexi jumped off Duncan's knee and fetched the rest of her sweets. That was that then. Dad would work somewhere else, and the mystery was solved. All back to normal. But then Duncan took another deep breath. "And," he continued, "Mum has to go away for a few days. We have to take her to the airport tomorrow." "What for?" Lexi asked, a sweet balanced in her mouth, untasted. "On holidays?" Bella asked. "No, Mummy has to go for an interview for a job a long way away," Duncan replied, and for a moment no one said anything. Lexi slurped her sweets as she thought hard. Mummy with a job? Well, why wasn't Dad getting a job? She didn't quite understand. Again. "Can I go too?" Lexi asked hesitantly. "I love going on planes. Why can't I go too? It's not fair." Lexi protested weakly, grabbing Bubba to resume her position on the bed. She already knew the answer to this request. Just when she had life worked out once more, she lay quietly for a while, hoping that Bubba and Sweeties would help. Her parents smiled, Duncan stroked her hair, and they both stood up and left the room. Bella skipped out with them, excited for Mummy's adventure. "Can I help pack your makeup bag, please, Mummy? I promise I'll only try on some of it." And they left Lexi to her frowning and sniffling. She lay very still, deep in thought. From her bedroom window the next morning, Lexi watched as her father started the car and threw a suitcase into the boot. "Lexi, come on," called Kate. She jumped down the stairs 2 at a time and skipped through the front door her mother closed behind her. "Did you brush your teeth?" she asked. "Of course," Lexi lied. Again. "I brushed my teeth, Mummy," called Bella. "Look." And she grinned at them both. "Ew, yuck. No one cares if you did your teeth." Lexi raced off to be the first in the car and get the best seat. At the airport, the family climbed out of the car and walked into the huge glass terminal. Despite herself, Lexi gripped Duncan's hand, staring wide-eyed at all the people. It was really noisy, with aircraft roaring, taxis chugging, and people talking at the tops of their voices. Inside, they went together up the escalator, and at the top, all of a sudden, it was time to say goodbye. "Goodbye, Kate, and good luck," Duncan smiled, hugging his wife. Lexi screwed up her face when her mother gave her a kiss, and wriggled out of her arms when Kate hugged her. Ugh, soppy stuff. Yuck. Then it was Bella's turn, but Bella refused to hug. Lexi watched with interest. Bella liked soppy stuff. Instead, she clung to Duncan and refused to move. Lexi pondered this for a while, and then she realised what her sister was thinking. Maybe if Bella doesn't hug Mummy, then she can't leave, she thought. Lexi stopped frowning. How sad must her little sister be? The thought made her very uncomfortable, and she tried to swallow her sadness. "I'll be back soon, my darling," she said, and gave Bella a kiss. "What a big baby," Lexi tutted. It felt safer to be unkind to her sister, even though she didn't really mean it. And then her mother was gone. She had walked through the glass door with a wave and disappeared. Lexi stared after her and didn't know what to say. Her throat prickled. Lexi knew it wasn't forever, but it was the first time her mother had not been there. Her lip began to wobble, but she managed to turn it into a super frown. It had been a hard morning. On Monday, Duncan drove them to school. "Daddy, we don't go this way," Bella observed as they wound their way around different streets. "Ah, this is the secret way," he joked. "Don't tell Mummy. Shh, actually, tell Mummy that she can't drive as well as I can. Can you tell her that?" Bella giggled. "Hee hee, okay, Daddy," she squeaked, knowing this was part of one of Daddy's silly jokes. He was always so much fun. "I wish you could take us to school every day, Daddy," Lexi said. Duncan smiled, patted her hand, and said nothing. At bedtime that night, Lexi snuggled into her bed and took out her book to read before lights out. Duncan had given them a double ice cream for dessert, but Lexi still couldn't get rid of the empty spot where her mother should be. Dinner tasted funny. He wasn't a good cook like she was, Lexi mused, and then thought that's the first time she'd ever thought of her mother as being good at anything. Just then, as she settled into a new chapter of her book, Lexi heard a noise from the next door bedroom. She sat up in bed with Bubba and listened to Bella sniffling. Duncan had finished the stories and kisses, and it was time for Bella to be asleep. Lexi felt like crying herself, just a little bit, and she wanted to get rid of that feeling. She crept into Bella's room and climbed onto her bed. Bella looked at her with wet eyes, which she was wiping with Teddy, when suddenly Lexi leaned over and gave her a cuddle. Bella was so surprised. Lexi had never hugged her before. Then Bella cuddled back tightly, and Lexi felt so sad for her. Bella was only small, and Lexi realised there was more to being a big sister than getting motorbike rides and bigger puddings. Daddy's dinner was funny tasting, Bella began, and Lexi laughed. "That's exactly what I thought," she said.